My parents invited me to a fancy family dinner but made me sit at the kids' table, while my married siblings joined the adults. So, I quietly stood up and left a few hours later. My phone was blowing up with their desperate calls. The moment I crossed the threshold of my parents' house, the familiar scent of pine garlands and slow-roasting turkey hit me like a physical blow. It was the smell of Christmas. Yes, but for me, it was also the smell of old anxieties and carefully measured inadequacies. I had a feeling this Christmas dinner would be a disaster before I'd even taken my coat off. It wasn't a premonition, so much as a grim, bone-deep certainty. It's not like I didn't know what I was walking into. It's always the same. But this year, I was determined to hold it together despite everything. Let me introduce myself. I'm Maya, the youngest of 4 siblings. In most families, being the baby of the bunch comes with a certain cachet, a lingering sweetness, a protective affection. In my family, it was a life sentence. It was the reason my opinions were considered cute, my accomplishments were a good start, and my life choices were perpetually up for discussion. I'm 28 years old. I have a career as a graphic designer that I've painstakingly built, a small but fiercely loyal group of friends who feel more like family, and an apartment that is wholly, unapologetically mine. But to the people in this sprawling Victorian mausoleum, I was still baby Maya. No husband, no kids, no anchor to their narrow definition of a life well lived. My parents' house was a character in its own right, a massive, aging Victorian that had been in the family for generations. From the outside, with its gabled roof and wide porch draped in twinkling lights, it was a picture-perfect postcard of familial bliss. Inside, it was a museum of my childhood, every polished surface an antique rug holding the ghost of a slight, a whispered comparison, a patronizing pat on the head. The air was always thick with the unspoken rules of tradition and the cold, distant elegance that my parents mistook for warmth. I timed my arrival to be just after the initial chaotic wave. My oldest brother, Chris, had already claimed the living room with the territorial bluster of a conquering king. His voice boomed over the general din as he directed his 3 boisterous children, his wife, Sarah, offering a tired but serene smile from the sidelines. Chris wore his success, a thriving dental practice, a minivan, a life that mirrored our father's, like a suit of armor. Then there was Amy, my sister, a mere 2 years my senior but light years ahead in my family's eyes. She was perched on the edge of an armchair, her newborn cradled in a sling of impossibly soft-looking linen. Her husband, Mark, stood guard nearby, his hand resting on her shoulder. They were a tableau of modern domestic perfection, their lives a curated gallery of milestone achievements. Amy's smile, when it landed on me, was a quick, polished thing before her eyes darted back to her baby, ensuring the spotlight remained on her starring role. My parents fluttered between the kitchen and the dining room, a synchronized dance of false busyness. My mother, Eleanor, was the general, her apron starched, her smile a tight, controlled line. My father, Robert, was the proud architect of his annual spectacle, his voice a resonant bass note that commanded immediate, unquestioning attention. I slipped in quietly, a ghost at my own feast, shrugging off my winter coat and hoping to blend into the wainscoting. The hope was futile. Maya, sweetie, my mother's voice cut through the chatter. She approached, her arms open for a hug that felt more like a ritualistic inspection. Her embrace was brief, her pats on my back brisk and efficient. So glad you could make it. Traffic wasn't too terrible. Go ahead and grab a seat. Dinner is just about ready. I barely had time to murmur a response before my father's voice rolled in from the dining room. Chris, Amy, get the kids situated, please. The turkey won't wait all night. His words were for everyone, but his gaze swept over me as if I were another one of the children to be managed. I stood there, stranded in the no-man's land between the foyer and the living room, the old familiar sting beginning to prickle behind my eyes. I took a steadying breath. Hold it together, Maya. It's just one night. That's when my mother, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, delivered the blow with her signature brand of saccharine condescension. Maya, honey, why don't you sit at the kids' table? We've got a special spot for you there with the cousins. They just love having their cool aunt with them. The world seemed to slow, the festive noises fading into a dull roar in my ears. The kids' table. I turned my head, my gaze drawn to the dining room. The adult table was a vision of opulent tradition. My grandmother's bone china gleamed under the light of the crystal chandelier. Water glasses and wine goblets stood like sentinels beside each plate. My father sat at the head, flanked by Chris and Amy and their spouses. There were no empty chairs. My eyes then traveled to the corner of the room, to the special spot. It was a rickety card table draped with a cheap, plastic-lined red tablecloth, surrounded by a mismatched collection of dining chairs and a stool. Paper plates, already buckling under the weight of crayon drawings, sat next to plastic cups. It was a monument to exclusion, dressed up as a privilege. I looked back at my mother, my blood running cold despite the warmth of the room. I could see it in her expression, not malice, but something far more insidious, a complete and utter lack of awareness. She didn't see the insult. She saw a practical solution. In her world, I still belonged with the crayons and the sippy cups. I forced my lips into a smile, a brittle, cracking thing. "Sure, Mom," I said, my voice unnaturally steady. "Thanks." Her answering smile was one of pure, uncomplicated relief. Problem solved. Without another word, I walked the long walk to the kids' table. Each step felt heavy, final. I lowered myself into a flimsy plastic chair that groaned in protest. I was surrounded by my young cousins, who were entirely absorbed in mashing their potatoes into topographic maps and giggling over a private joke. They paid me no mind. I was part of the furniture. I stared down at the paper plate in front of me, at the sloppy, carelessly served helping of uneaten lasagna from one of the toddlers. A chunk of broccoli tumbled from a tiny fork and landed with a soft plop on the floor. I watched it roll under the table, a perfect, green symbol of my own dignity. And that was the moment it happened. The moment something deep inside me, something that had been bending for 28 years, finally snapped. It wasn't a loud, dramatic break. It was a quiet, decisive click, a fundamental shift in my universe. This wasn't about a chair. This wasn't about tradition or logistics. This was a deliberate, conscious reaffirmation of my place in this family. Less than. An afterthought. And I was done. I stood up. The plastic chair scraped softly against the hardwood floor, a sound lost in the din of adult laughter and clinking cutlery. I didn't look at anyone. I walked back to the foyer, my movements calm and deliberate. I retrieved my coat from the closet, slung it over my shoulder, and reached for the brass handle of the front door. "Maya, where are you going?" My mother's voice, sharp with confusion and the first flicker of irritation, chased me across the foyer. I didn't turn back. I pulled the door open, and a gust of frigid night air rushed in, a cleansing, honest cold. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice flat and cold as the ice on the porch railings. "Enjoy your dinner." The slam of the door behind me was the most satisfying sound I'd heard all night. It was a period at the end of a very long, painful sentence. The cold air hit my face, and I breathed it in like a tonic. I could hear their frantic voices, muffled now, calling my name from behind the closed door. I didn't care. My car was parked just down the street, and with every step I took away from that house, a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying began to lift from my shoulders. I drove for hours, aimlessly, the tires humming a hypnotic rhythm on the asphalt. The adrenaline slowly ebbed, leaving behind a strange, hollowed-out calm. Eventually, I found myself pulling into the lot of a lonely, all-night diner just off the highway. The neon sign buzzed a warm, pink open into the darkness. I took a booth by the window, the vinyl seat sighing under my weight. A waitress with kind eyes and a name tag that read Flo brought me a cup of coffee that steamed in the cool air of the diner. I wrapped my hands around the thick ceramic mug, feeling the warmth seep into my still shaking fingers. I ordered a grilled cheese and tomato soup, the ultimate comfort food, a meal for one. That's when my phone, which I'd silenced and forgotten in my purse, began to illuminate with a persistent, angry glow. I pulled it out. The screen was a torrent of notifications. Missed calls, text messages. The family group chat was exploding. "Chris, Maya, this isn't funny. Where are you?" "Amy, Mom is freaking out. We just want you back." "What's the big deal?" "Dad, come on, don't act like a child. Get back here." I scrolled through them, my jaw tightening. The audacity. The sheer, unadulterated lack of self-awareness. They had exiled me to the land of juice boxes, and then had the gall to accuse me of acting like a child. Then, my mother's message, longer and more pointed, came through. Mom, Maya, I don't understand why you're doing this. Your siblings are concerned, and this is ruining Christmas. Don't make this about you. You're being selfish. Selfish. The word landed like a punch. They were sitting in their warm, perfect dining room, having their perfect dinner, and I was the one being selfish for refusing to play my assigned role in their pageant. A cold smirk, the one I'd been suppressing for a decade, finally broke free on my lips. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I hit the block button on her number. The temporary silence was bliss. I finished my meal, the simple, greasy food tasting better than any dry, perfectly cooked turkey ever could. The rage was subsiding, replaced by a steely resolve. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a line in the sand. Later, fortified by the coffee and my own simmering anger, I opened the family group chat. They were still going, dissecting my dramatic exit. Chris, she's just overreacting. She'll cool off and come back. Amy, I think we maybe hurt her feelings with the kids' table thing. Dad, it's a table. This is ridiculous. My fingers flew across the screen, typing out a message that was years in the making. I didn't hold back. You guys don't get it, do you? You really don't. This isn't about a seat at a table. It's about a lifetime of being treated like I'm not good enough. Like my life, my career, my independence are just placeholders until I finally grow up and get a husband and kids to make me legitimate in your eyes. You've made me feel invisible for years, unless you need something. Someone to run an errand, someone to be the punchline of a joke, someone to shove to the kiddie table to make your seating chart work. I've built a life I'm proud of, but you've never once seen me. You've only ever seen the baby you decided I was. So no, I'm not coming back. Not until you recognize that I am a 28-year-old woman, and I am done begging for a seat at your table. I pressed send, and felt a seismic shift within me. The cage door was open. The response was immediate and volcanic. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Dad, Maya, this is ridiculous. You're being dramatic. Get over yourself. Amy, you can't just leave like that and not expect everyone to be upset. What did you think was going to happen? Chris, we didn't do anything wrong, Maya. You need to calm down and come back before you ruin this for everyone. They still didn't get it. They were circling the wagons, protecting their perfect narrative by painting me as the villain. It was all the confirmation I needed. I opened my photo gallery, scrolling back through years of digital memories until I found it. The Christmas photo from 5 years ago. We were all lined up on the staircase, wearing matching sweaters. Everyone was beaming. My parents, Chris and his family, Amy and her then-fiancé. And there I was on the very end, my smile a tight, pained rictus. My eyes told the real story. I was an outsider in my own family portrait. I posted the picture in the group chat. Then I added a caption. Here's to the perfect family. Always making sure the youngest one knows their place. Then I turned off my phone. The silence that descended was profound and utterly peaceful. For the first time in my life, I had taken control of the narrative. The ball was in my court, and I had no intention of playing their game anymore. Underscore 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 underscore. The silence lasted through the night and into the next morning. When I finally plugged my phone in and powered it on, the deluge was worse than before. Dozens of missed calls, texts that ran the gamut from furious to faux concerned. Family friends had been recruited, their messages gentle but probing. The pressure campaign was in full swing. My mom had sent a novella. Maya, I've been up all night. I don't know what's gotten into you. You're acting like this is about us when it's really about you. You can't just run away from your family like this. You're tearing us apart. Please come back. Christmas is ruined without you. This isn't who you are. There it was again, the masterful reframing. My act of self-preservation was an act of destruction. My desire to be seen as an equal was a character flaw. Then, a message from Amy that gave me pause. It was different. Maya, I know you're upset. And I think I understand why. The kids' table was a crappy thing to do. I was so wrapped up in the baby I didn't even think. But this radio silence isn't the way to fix things. You're my sister and I love you, but you're pushing everyone away. Please just come home. We can talk about this. It's Christmas for God's sake. It was the closest anyone had come to an apology, but it was still conditional, still framed by the expectation that I was the one who needed to return to the fold to make things right. The for God's sake at the end was a classic guilt trip flourish. I felt a pang for the sister I used to share secrets with, but the woman who had sat silently at the adult table while I was exiled was a stranger. I typed back a simple, non-committal reply. I'll think about it. I sent it and set the phone down. The guilt was there, a persistent weed trying to take root, but I yanked it out. I would not be manipulated into capitulation. The day dragged on. The messages became more desperate, more angry. My dad's was particularly cutting. Maya, we need to talk. You can't just keep running away. You're going to regret this. The threat was clear. It was the same script, every line designed to instill doubt and fear. But for the first time, it wasn't working. Their words felt flimsy, powerless. As the evening fell on Christmas Day, I sat in my quiet apartment, the glow of the television my only light. I thought about the empty chair at their table. A part of me, the little girl who just wanted to be included, ached with a hollow loneliness. But the woman I had become knew that going back now would be a betrayal of myself. It would be an admission that my feelings were invalid, that my presence was a gift I should be grateful to bestow upon them, rather than a right. The phone rang again. It was my mother. I watched it vibrate on the coffee table, the screen illuminating her name. I hesitated, my finger hovering. This was it, the final confrontation. I took a deep, centering breath and answered. Maya. Her voice was ragged, stripped of its usual polished control. We need to talk. This has gone on long enough. I stayed silent, letting the weight of her words hang between us. Look, she continued, her tone shifting to exasperated. We're family. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you're pushing everyone away. Your dad is upset. Chris is upset, Amy. I'm upset, Maya. I could almost laugh. They were upset. I'm not pushing anyone away, Mom, I said, my voice calm and unervingly steady. I'm just not playing your game anymore. I'm not going to sit at the kids' table, be treated like I'm invisible, and pretend everything is fine for the sake of your perfect Christmas photo. She was quiet. I could hear her breathing, could almost picture her mind racing, searching for the right lever to pull. You can't just leave us hanging like this, she pleaded, a new, fragile note entering her voice. Your dad's trying to make Christmas special. The whole family is here. It's not just about you, Maya. I've spent my entire life making it about everyone else. The words burst out of me, sharp and hot, trying to fit into the mold you all created for me. But no one ever really saw me, did they? You didn't want me as an adult, Mom. You wanted me to stay the little kid forever, and last night was the final, undeniable proof. The line was silent for a long moment. It was a different silence this time. Not angry, not manipulative, but thoughtful. I'm sorry, Maya, she said, her voice soft and small. I didn't know you felt that way. The apology was simple. It wasn't wrapped in excuses or followed by a but. It was just there. Yeah, I replied, my own voice softening. Well, it took me a long time to realize it too. But I'm done pretending. She sighed, a long, weary sound that traveled down the phone line. I get it. I really do. But I'm still your mother, and I just want us to be a family again. The plea was genuine this time, stripped of its performative quality. I believed her. But belief wasn't enough. I'll think about it, I said, repeating my phrase from the text, but this time it was a promise to myself, not a placation for her. It meant I would consider a path forward, but on my terms in my time. It meant the burden of change was now on them. All right, she whispered. I hope you come back soon. I just want you to be happy. I know, Mom, I said. Me too. I hung up the phone and leaned back into my couch, the silence of my apartment wrapping around me like a blanket. It wasn't over. There were no easy fixes, no magical resolutions. The road to any kind of reconciliation would be long and fraught. But for the first time in 28 years, I was in the driver's seat. I had taken a stand for the woman I was, not the child they remembered. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet, sleeping city. The snow had started again, painting the world in a clean, silent white. Christmas wasn't ruined. For the first time, it felt like a beginning. I was free. And as for what came next, well, they would just have to wait and see. The ball, after all, was in my court,